So so the board was very thoughtful in the process that they used, and just made the decision in March to choose Kevin England to be the next president and CEO of Memorial Health.
Well, joining us today at the table is Ed Curtis, the president and CEO of Memorial Health. Ed, thanks for taking time to join us.
I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, well, we're certainly honored to have you. The work that you have done in this community over a long career goes without saying, but there are a lot of folks who would cherish the opportunity to sit down across the table from you, and we sure do. So really thank you. I would love to hear, I've heard you talk about this before, but would you talk a little bit about your journey into healthcare, why you got into healthcare, and I know a lot about your story, but for our listeners, I think it's just an amazing story.
Well, thank you, Chris. And I've known you and Brad for a long time. I have tremendous respect for both of you as leaders, so it's an honor to be here today. And I know
Thank you.
You guys care about Central Illinois as much as I do, and so that's great. So how did Ed Curtis become a registered nurse? So, I mean, you think back, I'm 50 years into healthcare, and so next year will be 50 years for me graduating from college with a baccalaureate degree in nursing.
Wow.
But when I was a child, I had an aunt and uncle that didn't have children that meant everything to me and my sister, and we spent a lot of time with them. And you also, when you're a child, you have this sense of immortality. So at 12, we were playing a board game, and my 55-year-old uncle dropped dead and died that night. That was devastating to me. And 5 years later, my aunt, after a 100-day battle in the hospital, which I would call hospice care now, died from a malignancy when I was 17, and she was 47. Man. And so it was my first exposure to healthcare, and especially when she was in there for 100 days at Springfield Memorial. I had a chance, either before school, after school, nights, weekends, our family took turns, and I got to see firsthand the different roles in healthcare, and I fell in love with the role of nursing. And I understand 50 years ago, people like men going into nursing was kind of taboo, but I loved it.
Yeah.
And when I graduated from college, 4 years later, I knocked on the door at Springfield Memorial, and I said, I'd love to work here because I had an emotional tie, and I've been there ever since.
Where'd you go to college?
I went undergrad SIU at Edwardsville.
Okay, yep.
And then I worked for 10 years before I went back to graduate school over in Urbana at the U of I.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Our stepson Luke is at SIU in the nursing program right now. So yeah. And then you served as an RN for how long prior to moving into administration? A little bit about that leadership journey.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. So when I went into healthcare to be a nurse, I loved it. And I loved every day of it. I practiced 10 years on a medical surgical unit at Springfield Memorial, and I never, ever thought I would do anything else. And I wouldn't have left. But somebody tapped me on the shoulder one day and said, hey, Ed, would you help us over here? And that's how my career's kind of progressed. Stayed in direct clinical care the first 15 years, and then I've done other administrative things the balance of my career. But I never lost that love for patient care and care deeply about navigating and helping other people access the system today.
Yeah. How long have you been CEO, president and CEO now?
This is my 17th year as the CEO at Memorial, and part of that I was the executive vice president, ran the operation for 14 years. So I've been doing kind of this role for the last 30 years.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I would say one of the things when I was with the Chamber of Commerce, one of the things I had the opportunity to do was witness great leadership in our community from leaders of varying organizations, Memorial Health certainly being one of those. And oftentimes Ed would sit on a panel with us for our Leadership Springfield program, and we'd talk about what leadership looked like. When you think about that term leadership, I think there's a lot of folks who think about leadership being a position. When you hear the word leadership, how would you describe it?
Yeah, another great question. To me, leadership matters. It matters. And I think if you're going to be an effective leader, you need to have, kind of 5 components in there, and then I'll talk about leadership style. But the components are, first, you need to have some balance in your life. balance matters. What are you doing at work? What are you doing outside of work? What are you doing with family, et cetera? So you just maintain some balance in your lifestyle is number one.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have mentors. You need to have people that'll give you guidance, along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And every step of my career, I've had, maybe they're not the same people today they were 50 years ago. There's some people that put their arm around me 50 years ago, had a huge impact on my career. So having kind of a little personal board of directors, I think really matters and has been helpful to me. And then I think involvement, get involved in the communities in which you live and work. And maybe it's different levels of involvement at different times. You got a young family, you got young kids, maybe you're doing it with their sports teams or other people like that, schools. But then you can get involved in health and human service agencies or other not-for-profit agencies. And as you progress along your way, maybe you get involved in more policy organizations, et cetera, but involvement matters. And then growth, how do I stretch myself as a leader? How do I get involved in things that will make me grow and develop? So, as an example, I'm involved a little bit on the board of the Growth Alliance, because I care deeply about our community. Maybe I couldn't have done that young in my career because I wouldn't have been asked. I'm on the University Board of Southern Illinois University, Carbondale, Edwardsville, Alton, and Springfield. I'm passionate about the medical school, but I'm also passionate about the 66 counties of Central and Southern Illinois. Those are opportunities I may have today, but along the way, when I started, I said, I'm going to go get involved with the United Way. Why the United Way? Because I can meet all the health and human service agencies. So I did that for 6 years. And then I picked a couple of them out. And I picked out the Urban League, Central Illinois Food Bank that I personally invested in and got involved in. So at various stages of my career, there's different ways where I think leadership matters. It gave me some exposure, some involvement in the community. And now maybe I'm doing a few more policy things with economic development or overseeing the university board of directors. Those things matter in leadership.
Yeah, you mentioned leadership style earlier. You see all kinds of styles, right?
Yeah, you do.
How would you talk about your style?
I think everybody's style evolves over time. If you go back to when I first started, there was a lot of command and control, and then we all got, even back in the 70s, we started talking about servant leadership. And so command and control works in certain situations. We brought it back during the pandemic because you had to have these structures in place where you didn't have a lot of time to have everybody to have input on things. So we got to experience that a little bit more. So it can work in certain situations. I think servant leadership is awesome. I mean, what are we there to serve? But we got to remember what we're serving. Are we serving our colleagues or are we serving our customers? We can do both, but it's really about the customer. So for me, it's more about purpose-driven leadership. Because what is the difference between servant leadership and purpose-driven leadership? It's you want to have an impact. So there's got to be some level of accountability and an impact to the purpose of your organization. The organization I work for is healthcare. We want to improve lives and build stronger communities through better health. Sure, we want to serve our colleagues, but only if we can have an impact on fulfilling that mission. So I think purpose-driven leadership, where everybody rallies around a purpose, is the way to lead today. And you got to lead with a head and a heart. Head's not enough. Be technically knowledgeable, and if you don't care about people and care about what you're doing, I mean, the profession that I'm in has a very noble mission when you think about it. Very noble mission. So it's easy to get around purpose-driven leadership, but it's not okay just to... Servant leadership got a little bit of a bad rap there for a while because people, hey, you're here to serve me? No, we're here to serve the community. We're here to fulfill this mission, and we can serve both, but it's all about having an impact on what we're trying to do to fulfill mission.
Yeah, I love what you said about the head and the heart. You can have all the technical skills in the world, or the flip side, you can have the biggest heart in the world, but if you don't have the technical skills and know how to do it, to execute, it's hard to lead.
Yeah, well, and I remember I was on the memorial board in Decatur, being from Decatur my whole life, and moved over here to Springfield a few years ago. But when I got the call from you before we did the merger, that, hey, we need to have a chat. And I remember the first time when he came in to one of our board meetings and sat down in front of all the Decatur board members and talked about the game plan, right? And you're a man of your word. And there were a lot of concerns about, had a hospital from Springfield's going to come in and what's it going to look like in 2 to 3 years. And from what I understand, all the promises you made, you guys delivered on. How's it going over there?
Yeah, it's really good. But here's what Brad didn't tell me when I came in and we affiliated in October of 2019. He didn't warn me there was a pandemic coming
Coming
in
around the
spring.
corner.
No, I did not.
None of us knew that.
He didn't know that?
No, I did
but
not.
You were good at looking around corners, but you
I
couldn't
missed
see that one.
I missed that one, yeah.
And I don't mean to make light of a pandemic.
Right.
It was
No,
a terrible
yeah.
tragedy
It's
for our
terrible.
country, et cetera. But it did have an impact. But I'll tell you this, Brad, I'm not sure the organization had the resources to withstand a pandemic.
Oh, yeah, for
So
sure.
having an organization, and I think we're all working really well together. I
Yeah.
love that community over there. I love what they're doing in economic development. I'm so impressed with getting to
Yes.
know the people of Macon County and Decatur a lot better. And wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things going on
There's a
over
lot
there
of
for
great
sure.
things in the community.
Yeah, and Drew is still CEO there, right? And a great leader himself. Yeah.
I'm very proud of
Fantastic.
Drew and Kristen. One of the things we say is if you're going to take that opportunity, you got to live. Your kids are in schools. You got to be all in the community in which you're going to serve as a CEO. And Drew and Krista are all in, and they love their community. And I think people respect the fact that you're not commuting to work.
Well, I
Absolutely.
saw him at the
I was gonna say, tell you in your story.
Well, we saw for sure. Well, we saw him at the Memorial Health tournament out at the tent there, and his wife and she said we love Decatur, which was awesome to hear. Because sometimes Decatur can get a bad rap, and Drew said, "Hey, we're all in. We've got some great friends, and just a tremendous opportunity." So I think that's awesome.
I love that community, and I think when you look at the industry over there and what they've done, I don't know if you know Nicole Bateman, who runs economic. I mean, she's the real deal.
Yeah, she's good.
And what they're doing, they have over $3 billion of projects going on in Macon County.
I know. And
But we have
crazy.
$3 billion of projects going on in Sangamon County,
know.
and I've never seen that in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Ryan
McCready.
he came from over there,
Right.
and
Yeah,
sort
he
of
worked with Nicole, right?
he was in charge,
Yeah, he
and
was
then
the city manager, and
then was leading economic development. Larry Altenbaumer introduced me to who's another wonderful man in Decatur.
Yeah, he's
So,
a good one.
Yeah. I'm very, very proud of our relationship over there. And to answer your question directly, they are really doing well.
That's awesome.
They're
Glad
doing
to hear
well.
it. I love it. I love it.
Well, Brad tells a story about opening up a new location here in
yeah.
Springfield,
Well,
being very
yeah.
much the same about needing
Yeah.
to be a part of the town.
And I mean this in a respectful way, even though the word's not going to sound right, but I don't know another one to describe it. But it's a very Springfield for a guy from Decatur was a very incestuous town. And I was spinning my wheels because I was from Decatur driving back and forth. I didn't live here. I didn't go to church here. I didn't shop here, And so we dumped a ton of money, and I probably lost, a couple $1 million over here before I realized I have got to move to this community and be from Springfield. And it's made a huge difference in a good way because everybody buys local.
I agree. And relationships matter. And I will tell you, Brad, he won't remember this, but I had a conversation with him before I even went over to meet with the board over there because I knew he was on the board. I knew what he did here in our community. And if I wouldn't have had a positive interaction with him, I would have never taken the meeting or the call. Because then you meet the Larrys, then you meet the Amy Fikes, you meet all the people that are on that board over there. It's just these people care deeply about their
passionate.
community.
They do.
And you just don't want to disappoint.
Oh, yeah. Well said. How's Amy doing? Is she still on the board?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
She's on the parent board, too.
Is she? Yeah, she's sharp, isn't she?
She's impressive, but I just love, I just love, the people over there that are on that board. And
That's great.
Cool. So in the system, five hospitals, is that correct?
there are 5 hospitals, but we have 70 ambulatory sites.
Yeah.
So the outpatient side is pretty important, too.
Yeah.
Right. And more of that these days than ever before,
Absolutely.
correct?
Yeah,
more and more care
absolutely.
happening in ambulatory located sites.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned the pandemic a minute ago.
Mm-hmm.
The pandemic changed our world in a lot of ways. It certainly changed healthcare. Could you talk a little bit about, you could probably talk a lot about it, but some of the ways that it has reshaped the way we do healthcare?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think, I always tell people healthcare was the first in the pandemic. We're going to be the last out. Why are we the last out? Because we're not seeing a lot of inpatient care for COVID-19, but we are seeing the labor consequence of COVID-19. More and more people were overwhelmed in that initial 12 months of providing care, and people were afraid and other things. And then our world kind of evolved where we have a lot more technology that we can work remotely that we didn't have before.
Right.
Sure.
Product like Teams and other things that are so well developed now that more and more people are looking for these hybrid work opportunities. It doesn't work so well when you're touching patients in
Right.
the ICU or the emergency department, et cetera.
Sure.
So we got into some extreme labor shortages. As a result of supply and demand, salaries went up. 70% of what we do in healthcare is government reimbursed. So that's a fixed payer system. So it's a very inelastic revenue model, meaning we don't raise prices to generate more, but our labor went up 40% over 3 years and has stayed there. Now, I'm not being critical. That's just the way it is. If you can't get
Right.
somebody, you're going to pay a premium.
Yeah.
And so the challenges that we've been facing, we had a math problem, meaning you
Reimbursements
can't-
aren't up 40.
You can't. So we had to make some extreme reductions and expense reduction over the last couple of years.
Are you seeing the labor challenges just as great today as they were, say, in 21, 22? Seeing that come back at all?
They are, but here's what's exciting about it. So I was just left the University of Illinois at Springfield before I came here, and we were out there doing a press conference with some new animatage tables that are virtual reality that they can use for anatomy and physiology in their nursing program. We've been out there for 10 years working with the University of Illinois at Springfield, the University of Illinois at Chicago to expand nursing that didn't exist here before. And we've done that in 5 other colleges and universities here in Central Illinois, Richland and Decatur, Lincoln Land here, University of Illinois, Illinois College, and Illinois State University has brought their campus here. Why is that important? Because in 2014, we recognized that 10,000 baby boomers a day were retiring in this country, every day.
Wow.
Today it's up to 11,300 baby boomers are retiring. So we were thinking ahead back in 2014. We needed to grow the number of training program slots in Central Illinois, because if you train in Chicago, your first job is probably going to be in Chicago.
Sure.
So we've added 500 training spots. What we didn't anticipate was the pandemic, and so it's even got accelerated more. But these training programs are so important. So to answer your question, yeah, we're making progress because there's still such a demand to get into these healthcare schools. And it's not just nursing, it's pharmacy, physical therapy, respiratory therapy, physics, pick your subject. We touch almost every occupation, but it's sometimes not enough faculty, not enough space, because there might be a demand of students that want in, like medicine. We'll get 1,300 applicants at SIU for 72 slots this year.
Wow.
Man,
Unbelievable.
1,300.
Unbelievable.
So demand is there, but it costs money to expand and have enough people to train, et cetera. So we're making progress, really good progress on the staffing. But I think people also kind of re-examined their lives and said, I'm not sure I want to work at the pace I was working before. Maybe I'll work full-time, but I don't want to pick up another 10 hours a week, or maybe I will work part-time, or maybe I will work remote instead of.
Yeah.
So it's multifactorial. We're making progress. But with the help of all these college and universities, they're doing really good work.
Yeah. Going back to our leadership topic, what would you tell someone who's early in their career? Your journey is an amazing one. What would you tell somebody early in their career who aspires to be a leader and provide vision and leadership for the organization that they're a part of to grow and advance?
Yeah, another great question. I would say for me, I didn't come with this mapped out plan when I went to college, because I wanted to serve others. I wanted to take care of patients, and I loved every day of it. So I didn't have a plan. And if somebody wouldn't have tapped me on the shoulder, I can guarantee I'd still be doing what I was doing before, because I really enjoyed what I'm doing. But here's what I tell the young leaders that I mentor and talk to today. Focus on the opportunity you have and do it really well. It's okay to look ahead. It's okay to plan your education. It's okay. But don't sit there and spend every hour in the day thinking about, how do I get to do Ed's job when I'm my first year out of college?
Right. Right.
Because even when I was 15 years out of college and somebody said to me, well, you could do that job, I'm going to go, who, me?
Yeah. You're right.
Right.
Yeah. So I think focus on the opportunity you have, do it really well, and continue to learn something new every day. Your intellectual curiosity will take you a long way.
Yeah.
I asked that question because I thought we'd get that answer. I remember asking that question in Leadership Springfield, and it is simple, but it's profound, because so many people want to think 10 years down the road instead of saying, I'm going to do the very best I can do where I'm at today and trust that those other things will take care of themselves as I
Yeah.
continue to grow and develop as a person.
As long as you
and
grow
a
and
leader.
develop.
Yes.
Right.
Be
That's-
curious.
Yeah, always
Be
have a
curious.
spirit of curiosity.
Yeah.
It's one of the things he always talks about. First
Yeah.
thing that happens when we walk away from folks is like, that person had no curiosity. They never asked one question about anything.
Yeah.
No desire to grow or learn.
Yep.
But I just love that answer, because if you do the very best where you're planted, those other opportunities come our way. At least that's been my experience for sure.
Yeah. And we had Mike O'Shea on and Jeff Nelson. And
Oh my gosh.
I don't know
there's
if you
just-
watched it.
yeah.
Is that
Together?
out yet?
It
Yeah,
hasn't
together.
yet. It'll be out soon.
But
Yeah.
just how Mike is so wired on helping the community, much like you are, like what you talk about, and this constant learning and making all the people around him better, including himself. I mean, it's almost like his culture and your culture. The things that come out of both of your mouths are almost identical.
Yeah.
When you agree,
Yeah, very
because
much.
I've been to your learning center, and you provide opportunities for people in this community that may or may not have anything to do with healthcare, which I think is incredible. I mean, did somebody teach you that, or how did you learn that?
I think it's just being curious, being around other people. I learn the most from the other people. Surround yourself with people that have more to offer than you do.
Sure.
And I never tell this story to anybody because I said I had a personal board of directors. I never will reveal who's on it. You just named two of them.
Is that right?
Mike O'Shea and Jeff Nelson.
Well, those are two good ones.
Yeah,
Those are-
that's
they're
all
good
you
ones.
need,
Yeah.
probably.
Those are two of the best leaders.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
Unbelievable. Just
Chris-
great people.
Chris took me to lunch with Jeff Nelson and just said, "Hey, I want you to meet this guy."
Yeah.
And he's just a really neat person. And we could have sat there for 8 hours and had lunch. I mean, there's something about him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
and he is curious.
So
Yeah, oh, yeah.
not only curious, but here's another thing of leadership that matters so much and I know you being a pastor in your life and the authenticity that Jeff brings when he delivers a message, it's you can put it in my business, your business, et cetera. We might technically know the ability, but man, it's hard to teach authenticity.
Yeah.
And
for
that
sure.
guy and Michael Shea is the same way. I mean,
Yep.
I shouldn't tell this on a podcast, but in 2006, I quit bidding hard bids on jobs because relationships are everything to me.
Sure.
And, I don't bond a project, even if it's a $100 million construction project. I'll go, self-insure with them. And you can't do that if you don't trust people.
Right.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And, relationships matter.
Yeah.
They sure
And,
do.
and doing
Everything.
business with the right people, just like your company. I mean, you guys are amazing. I wouldn't call anybody else, but it's the people that are leading, and leadership matters.
Yeah. We sure appreciate the opportunity to do work in your facilities and for the health
Well,
system.
personally
You
and
guys
professionally, you guys are the best.
Well,
Well,
thank you.
Thank you. You're
Yeah.
far too
No, I
kind.
mean
high
that.
praise.
I
Yeah.
mean
High
that.
praise.
I mean
Yeah.
that.
For sure. So I think we ask a question all the time when we meet, and you've got years of experience and are so respected. I think people would love to hear your answer to this. If you could look back 20, 30 years, you've been in healthcare 50 years. If you could look back even 30 or 40 of those years and give your younger self advice based on what you know today and what you've experienced, what might that
Or
look
maybe,
like?
the nursing ed and then the administrative CEO ed. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
The
that's
two
good. I
different
like that.
because,
Yeah, and I can't disconnect them either because I think I'm a more effective leader because of my clinical background.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when I look at the mission that we have in our organization to improve lives and build stronger communities through better health. Now, if you unpack that just for a minute, improving lives, what's this building stronger communities through better health? Because what we do, and I'm in awe of the medical staff, whether at the Springfield Clinic or HSHS or Memorial or the medical school, I'm in awe of these men and women that are just doing God's work. But the issue is, it's just the impact that you have with taking care of somebody when they're sick is one thing. But if they don't have a consistent food source, it's these social determinants of your overall health. None of us worry about where we're going to get our next meal.
Right.
Yeah.
None of us worry if we're going to be able to pay for our electricity in the wintertime.
Right.
And so if you don't have a safe place to live, you don't have a job, you don't have a consistent food source, the last thing you're going to care about is somebody in one of our clinics wrote you a prescription to get your cholesterol down. It's not going to matter.
Right.
So we can do some things, but it's about everything. So I think the advice I would give is, again, it's that purpose-driven leadership. Make sure that the purpose is clearly stated and that you have impact that you're trying to achieve toward that, and your employees will rally around it. So whether I'm a direct caregiver, making sure that I have a heart to go with the head and I'm not just going through the motions when I'm taking care of a patient.
Sure.
Applies to everything I do today, because these aren't numbers on a paper. These are not, I tell people all the time, we're in healthcare that happens to be business, and it is a big business.
Yeah.
But we are not in the business of healthcare.
Yeah.
We are not
Well
in the
said.
business of healthcare. And I want people to understand that and realize we're dealing with people's lives, and we're dealing with people at their most, sometimes these are very challenging situations that occur, and we just want to be there for them all the time. And we're not perfect. And I'm saying we collectively, whether you're at the clinic or the school or HSHS or Memorial Health, I'm just saying collectively.
Sure.
We got to be there for people, and we want to fulfill that mission every day.
Is it rare to have somebody that in your position with a clinical background, or is it
That's a great
not,
question.
Yeah, Brad, that's a great question. I think you see all kinds. You can be very effective if you went and got a finance degree like Kevin has, and got a graduate degree in business and finance. But you better make sure this thing's working with this.
Yeah.
And so, no, I don't think you need to have a clinical background to be successful. You could also have a clinical background and not have good leadership skills.
Good point.
Because you're in a command and control, or you just can't hold people accountable, because that was the issue with servant leadership. I want to serve everybody. I want to be everybody's friend. No, that's not okay.
Right. Yeah.
There has to be some impact that you're going to deliver to fulfill mission. And so with that comes some accountability.
Sure. Makes sense.
Yeah, sure
Yeah,
does.
well said. Yeah.
You mentioned, I think you were referencing Kevin England. So Memorial, I know you recently announced a leadership transition that begins, I think, July 1st, if I remember correctly. Can you share a little bit about that?
Great question again, but I got to go back and I want to talk to you about the board of directors of Memorial Health, because I'm blessed to work for this most incredible board. And I'm a student of watching boards and other organizations. Some have elected boards, some have self-perpetuating boards. Memorial's a self-perpetuating board. And these men and women throughout Central Illinois have made sure that they have a very diverse set of skill set, as well as, gender, race, all those other issues. But the skill set is so important, because you don't want 5 of this and 5 of that. Yeah. You want somebody that can cover every part of them. So you can tell by looking at me that I'm getting close to retirement age, and a little past. And so the board and I talked, when we were in the height of the challenge with the pandemic and all the other issues, we talked about staying a little bit longer, which I did. And then we've had to make some kind of tough decisions to right the ship economically, but now's the time. So what I loved about our board was they didn't just say, hey, what do you think? And, pick a friend or whatever you want to do it. Yeah. So they went through this very thoughtful process where they brought an outside firm, and not a search firm. Nothing wrong with search firms. Sure. But they got this IO psychology firm called Newberg Partners, and all they do is leadership transitions from Mass General at Harvard to the Obama Presidential Library to BJC. Wow. Okay. And they're in there meeting people. Now, the board knew there were 4 internal candidates, and they started this process about 18 months ago. But the Newberg people came in, a lot of, Hogan assessments and interviews and 360s and board interviews and everything else. But what you really wanted out of the Newberg people was saying, okay, you internally, Ed, has identified 4, really top candidates. What if they had to come back and said, these people really don't measure up with what's out there in the real world that other people are getting for a $1.6 billion enterprise? That's not what they found. They go, wow, you got good people here. Now let's just sort through and see which one there is. So so the board was very thoughtful in the processes they used, and just made the decision in March to choose Kevin England to be the next president and CEO of Memorial Health. Now he's going to take over the president role, which has never been separated from, and I'll be the CEO and probably stay up to 1 year, yet to be determined. And during that time, Kevin will build his own operational structure take over the clinical operation, and then I'll phase out in about a year.
That's awesome.
Gotcha.
Well,
But it's well thought out, but not by Ed.
right.
Board.
The board, yeah.
No, incredible board of directors.
Yeah.
Incredible board of directors.
Who's president now of the board?
So Mike Alio just took over
Okay.
at the January meeting. Todd Wise has been for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Todd is, I respect all our board members. And if I look at the executive committee of the board, it's just solid, wonderful people. And but they've all lived in the communities here in Central Illinois. As I said, Amy Fikes on the board. Gussie Reed is on the holding company board. These are people from Decatur. So it's not a constituent board like you got 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, but it's really helps if you got a board that makes up these 10 counties of Central Illinois.
Yep.
It's a big deal.
And different talents.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. What's retirement look like for you? Do you have any hobbies?
I do not.
Okay.
And I shouldn't say that.
Work too hard, huh?
I shouldn't say that to you.
Are you going to get involved in any new hobbies? Or?
Well, I'll try to answer that now because, finishing strong and Jeff Nelson has helped me a lot, give me a couple books. And
good.
I've been reading some things, et cetera. So because one of the things I have to do is walk totally away from Memorial. You've seen many examples around the country, et cetera. The best one is John Wooden. When John Wooden, who was the most successful coach in terms of winning at UCLA, the next year after he left, the new coach came in, and of course it wasn't quite, maybe 9 titles in a row, that kind of stuff. And so they had a bad game early in the season. Come up after the game, stuck a microphone in Coach Wooden's face, and they said, "Coach, what's wrong with the team?" And he answered, he said, "I love this university. I love our new coach, and I'm sure he'll make some mid-season adjustments and he'll get it right."
Yeah.
And what you don't want to do is do what you see some people do in communities. So you can't have a foot in and whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm not going to do.
Gotcha.
So what I am going to do is I'm very involved in economic development.
Okay.
And I think I can still stay involved in that in Springfield
great.
for a year or two.
Sure.
I'm not going to lie. My influence will wane when I don't have the job behind. They're going to go, "Who's this guy?" And I'm going to be on the university board until my term expires, and I think that's very important for me too.
Sure.
And I can do that. And then the other thing that I really do is sharing my time a little bit. So I mentor students, and I have several students that are going through either graduate school in health administration, more going into medicine.
Yep.
And so I average about 5 in every medical school class that I keep an eye on.
Yeah.
And so while I haven't been taking new students for a couple of years, I want to work through the ones that I have. So those 3 things will keep me enough engaged here.
Yeah.
And I may get involved in a little more, not-for-profit, charity work with some of the charities I care deeply about, Boys and Girls Club, Kidseum. There's several in the community that I really, Central Illinois Food Bank, of course. And then Sharon and I have lived here our whole life. We lost 2 parents in the last 6 months, but we still have 2 alive out at Concordia that are 95 and 97, so we're not going anywhere.
Wow.
And then our kids came back after college and live here, and we have 5 grandchildren. So
Are they here local?
all of them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's
so,
great.
So we love family, and
Yeah.
our family is a big part of our life. I won't tell you how many sporting events. I didn't make them all because I had an event in Chicago this weekend. But with just my daughter's 3, they had 13 different events this weekend related to sports. That's a little much.
Well, I see Steve with his son all the time,
Yeah,
and he sure seems like a great dad.
He's a good dad.
Is his son playing any sports?
Oh, yes. He's
Yeah.
on. Yeah, he's on a lot of them.
Yeah, good. Well, it sounds like you're going to be busy.
Yeah, and we love. We're not moving away. We'll never winter somewhere else. It's just we love the community. Not opposed to people that do.
Right. Sure.
It's just I want to be here for parents, and we want to be here for our kids and grandkids if they need us. We don't drop in, but they call every day.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, and I suspect people will be glad to know you're going to still be a part of this community moving forward.
But I'm serious. I have to stay at a memorial. That's very, very important. Not that anybody's asked me to. It's just not the way you lead is to stick your nose in after you've had your turn.
And it'll be. I suspect it would be a challenge for me after 50 years somewhere to
absolutely
say I have to.
Yeah.
You know what? The one thing that I'm going to miss, I get a call from somebody every day, sometimes 2, 3, 5.
Yeah.
Hey, Ed, I got this problem. What would you do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bet.
And I can't do that anymore.
Right.
Because if I can't,
Yep.
you know, hey, Jackie, I need this.
Yeah.
Hey, John, I need this or whatever, and I can make it happen. It just, so I got to have a mechanism to hand some of that off to somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the part that I'll miss the most because that's the patient care side that allows me to connect back to purpose,
Sure.
that purpose-driven leadership,
Yeah.
where it's really about what are we doing to fulfill that mission?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it.
What are we doing to preserve the safety net?
Mm-hmm.
If somebody comes and calls one of our pediatrician's office and they're on Medicaid, do we say, we'll take you just as quick as somebody with commercial insurance? You better.
Yeah.
Because that's part of our mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, as we wrap up, I just want to say, kind of circle back to some of the things you shared. In some of my previous professional experience, I've had the opportunity to see and witness up close and personal your personal investment and care for the community and various initiatives. My time in the chamber, the investments that you guys make in this community have just been second to none, and just a thank you. And then on a personal note, without probably even knowing it at times, you've certainly helped me hopefully become a better leader, a better person, and you've certainly helped me take care of a few health issues once or twice as well. And no, seriously.
Yeah, thanks for helping keep me alive over here.
But remember, let's
Grateful
not make
for-
it too much about Ed because it's the power of Memorial.
Right.
It really is. It starts with that
I
board
know.
of directors,
Yeah.
and the people of Memorial is what motivates me to get going.
Sure.
And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I'm blessed
Sure.
to have the opportunity to serve there.
Yeah. Well, you lead from the front, that's for sure. So thank you.
Yeah. It's been great to have you on. Thanks for carving out a little bit of time for
Oh
us
my
today.
gosh, thanks for
Yeah.
asking me to participate. It's an honor.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Great.